In today's discussion, we will be talking about the life cycle of a plant, different types of plants, and their unique parts and characteristics.
The formal definition of a plant is any organism that has the ability to make its own food through photosynthesis. The foods are stored in the form of sugars and starches. There is a presence of a rigid cell wall apart from the cell membrane. They have eukaryotic cells, which is the presence of a distinct nucleus surrounded by a membrane. The organisms are mostly multicellular, meaning that they are made up of many cells organized to perform a function as a unit. They have unlimited growth at meristems. When meristems are present, their organs are specialized for anchorage, support, and photosynthesis. For example, roots, stems, and leaves. Plants' response to stimuli is rather slow due to the absence of sensory organs and nervous systems. They have limited movements due to a lack of organs for mobility, and their life cycle involves both sporophytic and gametophytic phases. Plants are the major producers in an ecosystem, and they include trees, herbs, bushes, grasses, vines, ferns, mosses, and green algae. Plants come from seeds that contain a tiny plant waiting for the right conditions to germinate. These conditions include adequate water, correct temperature, and a good location. These tiny and active plants' official name is an embryo. An embryo is packaged in material that provides food for when the seed germinates and begins to grow. The food storage is called the cotyledon, and during the early stages of a plant's life cycle, food is obtained from within this part of the seed. When the seed begins to germinate, roots begin to grow. These roots act like straws and absorb water and minerals from the soil. There are two basic root systems, tap and fibrous. Tap roots grow long into the ground and are thick, making certain plants hard to pull from the ground. Fibrous roots all grow at the same length and are thin. Other characteristics of roots is that some lie on the surface while others reach very deep into the ground. Both types serve the same purpose, however, and that is to anchor the plant into the soil. Once roots are established, progression into the next stage of the plant's life cycle occurs. In this stage, the stem appears, and its purpose is to support the plant. The lower plant of the stem forms a loop that pushes up through the soil and straightens, freeing the cotyledon from the soil. This newly emerged part of the plant appears in many different forms. For example, stems can be herbaceous, meaning they are bendable like a flower stem. The other type is woody, and this type is hard and cannot be bent easily, like a tree trunk. Along with supporting the plant, a stem acts like the plant's plumbing system, transporting substances between the roots and leaves, as well as producing and storing food. The next step in this cycle is for plants' leaves to form. Now that the cotyledon is above ground, the tiny leaves that were once inside the embryo begin to expand and eventually will be able to feed the plant through the process of photosynthesis. The food supply from the cotyledon will eventually run out and they will fall off of the plant because they are no longer needed. Just as the roots and stems of a plant, its leaves come in many different shapes and sizes. There are simple and compound leaves. A simple leaf is made of one simple part, and a compound leaf has many leaflets. Their commonality lies in that they change sunlight into energy through a process called photosynthesis. Leaves are the chief food-producing organs in most plants. In most plants, the greatest amount of photosynthesis takes place in the leaves. The energy source for photosynthesis is light, normally light from the sun. Because the leaves are flat and thin, they allow the plant that may be very large to be exposed to daylight, so that even if the light is not very bright, the leaves have a large energy source available. Some of the light energy falling on the leaf is absorbed by the green pigment chlorophyll. Like other green-colored substances, chlorophyll absorbs red and blue light and reflects green. When an ordinary material absorbs light energy, it is simply heated as a result. What is unusual about chlorophyll is that most of the light energy it absorbs can be transferred as chemical potential energy in a complex series of chemical changes. These result in the formation of higher energy food chemicals such as grape sugar, which is glucose, and cane sugar, which is sucrose. In the light, plants take in carbon dioxide and exchange it for oxygen. The input is carbon dioxide, which is CO2, water, which is H2O, minerals and light, and the output is carbohydrates, which is food, that we need for our nourishment, and oxygen. Water is the source of hydrogen for the photosynthetic production of glucose. The glucose turns into the energy for the internal functions of the plant. Food made by photosynthesis is transported away from the leaves by the stem and distributed to all of the parts of the plant. Some of the food is used in shoots and roots for growth, and the rest of it is stored.
There are several common misconceptions that students hold about plants. Most students think that trees and grass are not plants. One way to clear this up is to discuss the many different types of plants there are. This can be done through something such as a brainstorming web, where the students name the many different types of plants and the teacher finishes off the web by naming other common plants that the students have not mentioned. Another misconception is that a plant must have soil in order to grow. In order to clear this up, teachers could show examples of aquatic plants that grow in water without soil. You could also germinate seeds in a bag like we did in class. Lastly, students struggle with the fact that plants do not feed by absorbing food through their roots. Students believe a plant gets hungry and needs to eat and drink like humans do. In order to clear up this misconception, you could hold an investigation that explores plant growth with and without light. The teacher can also discuss different things such as fertilizers. This ends our discussion on plants. We hope you learned a lot of interesting facts.